Welcome to another deep dive. This time things are going to be a little bit different. We're going to be exploring the intersection of poetry, science, and faith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at the work of Sumaya.
Okay.
She's a Pakistani poet, and in her work, she really masterfully blends these realms together.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so specifically, we're going to be looking at her poem, Ain-ul-Yaqeen,
Ain-ul-Yaqeen,
which means belief in the unseen. And in this poem, she takes a very unique approach. Imagine, if you will, having a conversation about the universe with a deceased loved one.
Wow.
That's essentially the framework she uses to explore some really profound questions about existence.
I like that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very evocative way to start a poem for sure.
Absolutely.
And so how does she actually use that framework to kind of delve into these big concepts?
Yeah, well, she asks questions like, can you see my destiny from where you now reside?
Oh, wow.
Or can you witness the chains of time since you, my dear, have died? And it really challenges our conventional understanding of time as this linear thing.
Right.
Suggesting that maybe from another perspective, it could be observed in its entirety.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's like she's inviting us to step outside of, our earthly perception of time.
Yeah.
And consider its nature from a vantage point beyond our, physical realm.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and she doesn't stop there. She also asks about the stars.
Okay.
She's wondering if they are truly all just fire and flames, or if they reveal different constellations from beyond. It makes me think, what if our perception of these, distant points of light is merely a fraction of a grand invisible structure that we can't even fathom from our limited earthly viewpoint?
That's a very humbling thought, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, and then, this exploration of the cosmos kind of leads to questions about the nature of reality itself.
Right. Are we merely glimpsing a small part of what truly exists?
Yeah, exactly. And then she incorporates the epic love story of Hira Ranja.
Oh.
Yeah, these two star-crossed lovers. And she wonders if Ranja now, in the realm of spirits, can still see his beloved Hilthing.
That's beautiful.
It is. And it's a really interesting way to connect with these universal anxieties we all have about death.
Right.
The unknown.
Absolutely. What happens to us after we die?
Right. Where do we go? Can we still connect with loved ones?
Yeah, and I love how she uses that love story to symbolize this yearning for connection that goes beyond just romantic love.
Exactly. It's not just about, romantic love. It's about that human yearning for connection that transcends physical boundaries and time itself.
Right.
That hope that the bonds we forge in this life might somehow persist beyond it.
Absolutely.
And then this leads us to Sumaya's exploration of science,
Okay.
specifically the Big Bang Theory, as described by Stephen Hawking in his book, Universe in a Nutshell.
Oh, wow. So she's bringing in some serious science here.
Yeah, and this is where her perspective takes a really fascinating turn, because she doesn't just accept the Big Bang as the ultimate explanation. She questions its completeness. She writes, "They say the creation of the universe was just a Big Bang, it seems. Yet the fabric of time and space was torn from its seams."
That's a very interesting take on it.
I wonder if she's kind of subtly hinting at the limitations of scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
suggesting that maybe there's more to the story than we currently understand.
And that questioning of the Big Bang's completeness, it has some pretty significant implications.
Right.
It challenges this notion that it's the definitive origin story, right? And it kind of invites us to ponder, what might have existed before the Bang.
Right.
Which is a question science can't currently answer.
Yeah, and it's like she's acknowledging the vastness of the unknown and the potential for explanations that lie beyond our current scientific framework.
I like that.
And it's so fascinating how she blends her fascination with these scientific discoveries with a hint of a deeper intentional design behind it all. She even questions the idea that the cosmos is a product of mere chance, highlighting the intricate structure of the atom.
She challenges that notion that randomness could create such complexity, right? She asks, chance made the cosmos and its grandeur, you think? Then how is the atom structured on the same blueprint?
Right.
It makes you think about the possibility of some force or intelligence guiding this intricate design.
Yeah, so is she suggesting then that scientific inquiry and faith aren't necessarily at odds?
That's a great question.
Could they even complement each other in our quest to understand the universe?
And that question really leads us to the concept of Ayn ul Yaqin, which means belief in the unseen,
Right.
which is a central tenet of Islamic faith.
Okay.
And it acknowledges the fact that there are realms beyond our immediate perception, truths we may not fully grasp through scientific observation alone.
Yeah.
And this ties in beautifully with her questioning of whether our loved ones can perceive us from another dimension.
It's like faith in her view could bridge that gap between the seen and the unseen,
Right.
allowing us to connect with something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
And then she goes on to incorporate specific references from the Quran.
Okay.
She mentions Rahman, which is one of the names for God, meaning the most merciful,
Yeah.
and Tur, referring to Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments.
So she's really weaving together this scientific exploration with her own spiritual understanding.
Yeah, and she brings it all together with this line. I tried to ponder as hard as I could and thanked God's grace. Only he knows how the same oath a mere fig and Tur could face.
Wow.
So is she suggesting that even with all of our scientific advancements, there's still a limit to what we can actually comprehend?
It's a very thought-provoking statement that highlights the potential for humility,
Yes.
In the face of this vast unknown,
Right.
maybe there is a higher power at play,
Right.
some wisdom that goes beyond our human understanding.
It's amazing how she uses poetry as this vehicle for exploring such complex questions.
It really is, and it seems like she's not necessarily seeking definitive answers, but rather prompting us to think about the relationship between faith and reason.
So does she believe that faith and science can truly coexist?
Her poem doesn't explicitly answer that question,
Right.
but it certainly encourages us to ponder the possibility.
Yeah.
It's as if she's inviting us to embrace both the wonder of scientific discovery and the solace of faith in the face of the unknown.
She's presenting such a nuanced perspective.
You're right.
It doesn't require us to choose sides, but rather to consider the potential for harmony between these seemingly distinct realms.
And it serves as a powerful reminder that the search for truth and meaning is an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
One that requires us to be open to multiple perspectives and to embrace the mystery that surrounds us.
Absolutely. It strikes me that, Sumayya's background as a Pakistani poet living in the UAE
Right.
likely plays a role in her perspective,
Absolutely.
In a culture where faith is so deeply ingrained in daily life. Perhaps she's able to view science and faith not as opposing forces, but as different lenses through which to perceive the same reality.
Yeah, that's a really insightful observation. I think her cultural context definitely shapes her approach to these questions.
And let's not forget the poetic form she uses, the Ghazal.
Right.
This traditional form, originating from the Middle East,
Yeah.
known for its lyrical beauty,
Yeah.
its exploration of themes like longing and spirituality.
Absolutely.
It's remarkable how she takes this ancient form and infuses it with these modern scientific concepts,
Yeah.
creating something that feels both timeless and incredibly relevant.
It speaks to the enduring power of poetry, to connect us to those deep questions.
Yeah.
Regardless of the era we live in.
Absolutely. And speaking of the universe, Sumayya seems particularly fascinated by the idea of multiple dimensions.
Oh, yeah.
And this is something that Hawking delves into in Universe in a Nutshell.
Right.
He explores the possibility of higher dimensions beyond our three-dimensional perception.
Exactly. And how do you think that concept ties into her exploration of faith?
Well, I think it's fascinating how she seems to weave these scientific ideas
Yeah.
into her own spiritual understanding. She doesn't see them as mutually exclusive.
Right.
For her, the idea that our loved ones might exist in a dimension beyond our reach
Right.
doesn't contradict her faith in an afterlife.
Maybe it even strengthens it.
Yeah,
Instead of viewing science and faith as these separate domains,
right.
she finds these points of intersection.
Yeah.
Places where they might even illuminate each other.
It's a beautiful way of reconciling scientific inquiry with spiritual belief.
It really is.
It reminds me of that saying, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind.
Right.
Sumayya doesn't seem to shy away from either perspective.
Yeah.
She embraces both the wonder of scientific discovery and the solace of faith.
Exactly. She's not advocating for choosing sides or, declaring one as the ultimate authority.
Right.
What stands out to me is her recognition that we as humans are constantly striving to make sense of our place in the universe,
Yeah.
using all the tools at our disposal.
And sometimes those tools are scientific instruments,
Right.
and sometimes they're ancient spiritual texts.
Absolutely.
And in that striving and that constant questioning and seeking, we discover not only more about the world around us,
Right.
but also more about ourselves.
Yes.
Our hopes, our fears, our deepest longing.
Our longings, yeah.
And Sumaya's poem beautifully embodies that very human pursuit of understanding.
Couldn't agree more. Her poem is a powerful reminder that the search for truth and meaning is an ongoing journey, one that requires us to be open to those multiple perspectives and embrace the mystery.
And that journey is often more enriching when it's shared,
Absolutely.
when we engage in dialogue with others who are also seeking to make sense of these complexities.
I agree.
So to our listeners, if you're eager to delve deeper into these ideas,
Yes,
I highly recommend exploring Sumaya's work,
definitely.
particularly her English translation of Ain ul Yakin.
It's a really richly rewarding experience. It'll leave you contemplating, the nature of reality, the power of faith, and those enduring mysteries long after you finish reading.
You might even find yourself embarking on your own deep dive into this fascinating world where science, scripture, and the human soul converge.
I like that.
But, as we've been discussing Sumaya's poem and this interplay between science and faith,
Yeah.
I've been reflecting on how these two realms are often pitted against each other, as if they're inherently incompatible.
Right. It's a prevalent misconception that embracing one necessitates rejecting the other.
But as Sumaya so eloquently demonstrates,
Yes.
it's not that simple.
It's not black and white.
And I find it reassuring that at their core, both science and faith are ultimately about seeking truth.
Right.
They're both driven by a desire to understand the world around us, even if they approach that quest from different angles.
Science relies on observation, experimentation, empirical evidence
Right.
to explain the physical world through natural laws and processes.
Whereas faith often grapples with questions that lie beyond the reach of scientific inquiry.
Like meaning and purpose.
Yeah, the very nature of existence itself.
Exactly.
And while there may be areas where these two realms appear to clash,
Right.
I'm inclined to believe there's also considerable room for dialogue and even collaboration between them.
Absolutely. Take, for instance, the concept of the Big Bang.
Yeah.
As Sumaya astutely points out, while science can explain the mechanics of the universe's expansion, it doesn't necessarily address what existed before the bang or the catalyst that set it in motion.
And those are questions that often lead individuals to contemplate the possibility of a creator,
Right.
a force beyond our current understanding of physics that initiated everything.
It's a realm where scientific inquiry might naturally lead to philosophical and spiritual contemplation.
Indeed, and even within the scientific community, there's a growing acknowledgement that there are still mysteries we haven't unraveled,
Right.
phenomena that defy explanation within our existing framework of knowledge.
Yeah, things like dark matter, dark energy,
Right.
the very nature of consciousness.
These are all areas where scientists are pushing the boundaries of knowledge,
Yeah.
exploring the unknown with a sense of wonder and awe that echoes the spirit of spiritual seekers.
It's as if the pursuit of scientific understanding can lead us to the very doorstep of those profound mysteries that faith seeks to explore.
What an exciting prospect it is to envision a future where science and faith work in harmony,
Yes.
each enriching and informing the other rather than being viewed as adversaries.
I love that.
Sumaya's poem offers us a glimpse of what such a future might look like. A future where we don't have to choose between intellectual curiosity and spiritual yearning,
Right.
where we can embrace the wonders of scientific discovery alongside the solace of faith.
Perhaps that's one of the most significant takeaways from our deep dive into her work.
It certainly is, and as we wrap up this episode, I'd like to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
Oh, good.
Does grappling with scientific concepts strengthen or challenge your personal faith?
Maybe the answer lies not in a definitive choice,
Right.
but in the ongoing exploration itself.
Yeah, it's like by exploring these intricacies of the universe through the scientific lens, we kind of bump into these deeper existential questions
Yeah.
that have always been, the domain of faith for centuries.
Oh, right. And so in that sense, science and faith are not these like completely different things, but
Yeah.
more like complementary paths toward, more holistic understanding of who we are.
And Sumaya's poem, with its seamless blending of scientific concepts and spiritual reflections, really embodies this idea, doesn't it?
It really does. Her work kind of reminds us that we don't have to, put our intellectual curiosity and our spiritual yearning in these separate boxes.
Yeah.
They can exist together and even, make each other richer.
And that brings us back to that concept of Ain belief in the unseen,
Yeah,
which she incorporates into her poem so beautifully.
right.
It's a concept that encourages us to acknowledge the limitations of our perception,
Hmm.
and remain open to the possibility that there are realms and truths that go beyond what we can immediately grasp with our senses.
And maybe as we keep delving deeper into these mysteries of the universe,
Right.
we'll discover that science and faith aren't as different as we initially thought.
Hmm.
Maybe they're two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
both pointing us toward a deeper understanding of reality.
That's a very tantalizing thought, to imagine a future where science and faith, instead of being seen as these opposing forces,
Yeah.
actually work in harmony.
Right. Each one illuminating and enriching the other.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be a richer and more meaningful way to approach our quest for knowledge and meaning?
Definitely. Embracing both the rigor of science and the awe and wonder of spiritual exploration.
I think Samaya's poem gives us a glimpse of what that kind of future could look like.
Yeah.
A future where we don't have to choose between reason and revelation.
Mm.
A future where we can find beauty and inspiration in both the seen and the unseen.
It's a very inspiring vision, and maybe one that we can all try to make happen in our own lives,
Yeah.
approaching the world with a sense of curiosity and wonder
Mm.
and a willingness to embrace the mystery that's all around us.
Well said. And on that thought-provoking note,
Yes.
we come to the end of our deep dive into this really fascinating intersection of poetry, science, and faith.
It's been a really great discussion.
As explored by Sumaya,
Yeah,
we encourage you to explore her work further
definitely.
and to continue pondering these profound questions
Yeah,
about our existence and the universe we call home.
absolutely. And remember, the search for truth and meaning is an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
And perhaps, like Sumaya, we can find, inspiration and enlightenment by embracing both the scientific and the spiritual perspectives.
Absolutely.